picture the scene. You've been traveling across this unforgiving ocean for, well, for what basically feels like a lifetime.
Well, yeah, your body is just completely battered.
Exactly. Your mind is exhausted.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you find yourself standing in this magnificent marble palace before a really powerful, commanding host.
Right.
She leans forward from her throne, holding your gaze with just absolute authority, and she offers you this gorgeously wrought cup of wine.
Which, on the surface is the ultimate gesture of aristocratic hospitality.
Yeah, it looks like salvation. But hidden inside that beautiful, seemingly generous offering is a dark, inescapable biological trap.
Really is.
Because one sip and your consciousness will be locked inside the body of an animal forever.
It is the ultimate poison chalice. I mean, what we're looking at here is a moment of heart-stopping tension, but it's cleverly disguised as just a polite domestic greeting.
Right. And today, looking through this fascinating stack of research, art history articles, and the high-resolution gallery scans you sent us, our mission is to really explore how one single static image captures that exact terrifying second.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of art.
We're taking a deep dive into John William Waterhouse's 1891 masterpiece, Circe Offering the Cup to Odysseus.
It's a truly monumental piece of oil on canvas painting, and I mean that both in its physical execution and its profound narrative ambition.
Yeah, and we're going to decode the brilliant and honestly almost sneaky pictorial techniques the artist used to bottle up this massive clash of ancient magic and military strategy. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because before we get to the sorceresses and the ancient Greek heroes, we really need to ground ourselves in the physical reality of the canvas itself.
Right. So if you wanted to stand in front of this specific painting today, you would have to travel to the Gallery Oldham in the United Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
And when you get there, the very first thing that strikes you is the scale. It stands about 148 centimeters tall.
Wow, so that's, what, basically 5 feet?
Exactly. That scale is completely deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, it's nearly life-size when you factor in the seated position of the figure.
Right, because it forces you, as the viewer, to confront the subject on a human level, rather than just looking down at some miniature scene.
Right, and creating this in 1891 places Waterhouse firmly in the orbit of the Pre-Raphaelite movement, right?
It does, yeah.
That was the group obsessed with luminous colors, extreme naturalism, and kind of breaking away from those stiff mechanical formulas taught by the Royal Academy.
What's fascinating here is how Waterhouse utilizes that specific Pre-Raphaelite aesthetic to solve a narrative problem.
How do you mean?
Well, the movement was famous for painting layer upon layer of thin glazes over a wet white ground.
Oh, right, to create that glowing effect.
Exactly. It creates light that literally bounces off the canvas. And Waterhouse applies that intense, hyper-realistic technique to a subject of pure myth.
But looking at the timeline of his career in the notes you provided, this painting actually represents a massive disruption for Waterhouse.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge pivot.
Because up until 1891, he wasn't really known for Greek and Roman mythology at all.
No, not really.
I mean, he was painting scenes from ancient Rome, sure, but mostly historical genre scenes. People in courtyards, quiet domestic moments.
Right, very grounded subjects.
Yeah. So Circe was his very first leap into classical antiquity and pure magic.
And it was the catalyst for his entire legacy. I mean, after 1891, he would return to this mythological well again and again.
Right.
He even painted this exact same sorceress in another really famous work later on, Circe Invidiosa.
I always try to understand the psychology behind an artist making a pivot like that.
It's a drastic change.
It is. It's sort of like an architect who has spent a decade building beautiful, perfectly functional manor houses, and then suddenly realizes he has the engineering knowledge to build a towering Gothic cathedral.
That's a great way to put it.
So why the sudden shift? I mean, what did classical myth offer him that a regular historical courtyard scene just couldn't?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of Victorian England in the late 19th century, society was rapidly industrializing.
Right, the Industrial Revolution was in full swing.
Exactly. And society was becoming highly regimented and incredibly strict, especially regarding social norms and gender roles.
Oh, the Victorian morality.
Precisely. So classical mythology gave Waterhouse a socially acceptable vehicle to explore raw, unfiltered human psychology.
Because it's ancient history, so it's allowed.
Right. It allowed him to paint themes of female dominance, dangerous sexuality, and just sheer terror.
Wow.
You couldn't paint a contemporary Victorian woman behaving this way without causing a massive scandal.
Well, they would have been outraged.
Totally. But frame her as an ancient Greek sorceress, suddenly it is high art.
That is so clever. He used the ancient text as a shield to paint modern psychological anxieties.
Exactly.
And that brings us directly into the world he constructed on this canvas. We are stepping onto the mythical island of Aiaia, pulled straight from the pages of Homer's Odyssey.
Right, and for an audience familiar with the epic, Aiaia is synonymous with deception.
Yeah, it's an island that looks like a paradise, but operates like a Venus flytrap.
Perfect analogy.
And the stakes leading up to this frozen moment are just astronomically high. The hero, Odysseus, who the Romans actually referred to as Ulysses,
Right.
he has just sent 23 of his most seasoned sailors to scout the island.
And remember, these are men who survived a decade-long bloodbath at Troy.
Yeah, they have survived shipwrecks, sea monsters, everything.
Yet they are utterly dismantled without a single sword being swung.
It's crazy.
They arrive at Circe's palace, they are offered food and drinks spiced with her dark magic, and they are instantly placed under her absolute control.
Which brings us to the visual center of the painting. Circe is elevated on this magnificent throne. She is physically leaning forward, extending her arm to offer a cup containing that exact same magical potion directly to Odysseus.
And notice how Waterhouse paints her posture here.
She looks so relaxed.
Exactly. She isn't cowering, and she isn't acting aggressively either. Her chin is slightly raised, her lips are parted.
She projects just total relaxed confidence.
Right, because she intends to strip him of his humanity just as easily as she did his men.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because Waterhouse could have just painted a beautiful woman holding a cup and let the viewer fill in the blank.
He could have.
But he drops a visceral, gruesome piece of evidence right into the composition.
He does.
Right there at the base of her pristine marble throne is a pig. It is literally one of Odysseus's veteran crewmen magically mutated into a swine.
And the visual contrast there is just violently jarring.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the ethereal, almost translucent beauty of the sorceress in her diaphanous blue robes,
Right.
juxtaposed with the heavy, bristly, grunting reality of an animal snuffling on the floor.
I mean, it has to be the most absurdly obvious red flag in the history of literature.
It really is.
Imagine walking into a high-end cocktail party. The host offers you a beautiful vintage Cabernet. But meanwhile, there is a man in a tailored suit literally snorting and eating acorns at her feet.
You would sprint for the nearest exit.
I would be out the door instantly.
Yeah.
You'd certainly think the smell alone would break the illusion of hospitality.
Oh, for sure. But, that speaks to the insidious mechanism of Homeric magic.
So?
It doesn't rely on logic. It relies on base desire and the overwhelming aura of the caster.
I see.
And Waterhouse captures that hypnotic gravity perfectly. The painting forces you to confront the concept of manipulation.
Yeah, because the pig isn't just an animal. It's a profound loss of agency.
Exactly. According to the myth, the victims actually retain their human minds while trapped in the animal form.
Wait, really? They know what's happening?
Yes. They know exactly what has happened to them, and they are completely powerless to stop it.
Okay, that is pure biological horror right there.
It is terrifying.
It makes the standoff so much darker. But technically speaking, this setup presents a massive logistical problem for a painter.
It does.
If you were trying to capture a tense standoff between two monumental figures, a godlike witch and a legendary military tactician, how do you show both of them interacting without splitting the focus of the painting in half?
Right, because Waterhouse clearly wants Circe to dominate the visual space.
Yeah, she is the star.
So he solves that architectural problem through a brilliant piece of narrative engineering. He uses a convex mirror.
Yeah, I was zooming in on the high-resolution scans you shared with us, and the geometry of it is completely mesmerizing.
Isn't it?
Odysseus is nowhere in the physical foreground of this canvas. You don't see his back blocking the view.
Right.
Instead, positioned directly behind Circe's throne is this enormous circular mirror. And trapped inside that reflection is our hero.
And using a convex mirror in painting is a technique with deep roots in art history.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it dates back to works like the Arnolfini portrait in the Northern Renaissance. A convex mirror curves outward, meaning it captures a much wider field of view than a flat mirror.
Right, but it violently distorts the space.
Exactly.
It acts like a fisheye lens.
That distortion does an enormous amount of heavy lifting for the narrative here.
Because it shows everything.
Right, because the mirror is behind her, it catches everything happening in front of her. We see the reflection of the intrepid Odysseus, who is clearly tense and worried about his captive sailors.
You can see the tension.
But the curve of the glass also pulls in the grand, imposing architecture of Circe's palace columns.
And if you look closely in the background of the reflection, you can even see Odysseus's ship anchored outside.
It is literally a painting within a painting.
Yeah. The ship represents the escape, the way home, the entire driving force of the epic poem. And it's all miniaturized and trapped inside a piece of glass behind the sorceress.
This raises an important question, though, regarding the hierarchy of the characters. Why relegate the great epic hero of Homer's masterpiece to a mere reflection? Because traditionally, heroic art places the male conqueror front and center.
I have to challenge the idea that it's a relegation, actually.
No.
Yeah, think about the physical optics of how we are viewing this canvas.
Okay, walk me through it.
If the mirror is positioned behind Circe, and we, the viewers, are looking into the mirror and seeing Odysseus looking back toward her,
Right.
then the perspective lines dictate that we are standing exactly where Odysseus is standing.
That is true.
Waterhouse hasn't demoted the hero. He has forced us to literally step into his boots.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
By removing Odysseus from the physical foreground, the canvas itself becomes the charged, dangerous space between the two figures.
Exactly.
Waterhouse takes a flat, two-dimensional surface and bends it into a deeply immersive, three-dimensional room.
You aren't just watching a story unfold from the sidelines anymore.
No, you are the one being offered the poisoned cup.
The wand she is holding in her other hand is pointed directly at your chest.
It transforms a straightforward portrait into a panoramic thriller.
It really does.
You experience the intimacy of Circe's direct, unblinking gaze, but through the mirror, you also absorb the epic scope of the surrounding world.
You feel the physical weight of being implicated in the standoff.
Completely.
The tension is incredible because the image is entirely static. It freezes the exact breathless millisecond before the trap snaps shut.
Right.
She is holding out the cup. The viewer, acting as Odysseus, is looking at her. But examining the posture of Odysseus in that convex reflection, we have to address the climax of the myth itself.
We do.
What does the hero know that the sorceress doesn't?
This is where the narrative architecture of the Odyssey elevates the painting from a simple scene of peril into a masterpiece of psychological warfare.
I love that phrase.
Because Odysseus is not walking into this throne room blindly. I mean, he is arguably the greatest strategist in ancient literature.
Right. Let's trace the timeline just prior to this standoff. Before he even reached the palace, Odysseus was intercepted on the island path by the god Hermes.
Yes.
And Hermes doesn't just offer vague advice. He lays out Circe's entire tactical playbook.
He tells him everything.
He explains the potion, the wand, and the transformation of the crew.
But most importantly, Hermes arms the hero with the defense mechanism. He provides Odysseus with a mythical herb called moly.
Right, and the sources describe moly as having a black root and a milk-white flower.
Right. Exactly.
And it is notoriously difficult for mortals to uproot. But how does it actually function against her magic?
Well, moly acts as a sort of metaphysical grounding rod.
Okay.
It doesn't just stop a physical transformation, it immunizes the mind against the obliteration of the self.
Wow.
Circe's magic relies on dissolving a person's will and replacing it with animal instinct. But the moly preserves Odysseus's intellect and his human consciousness.
So it makes the sorceress's potion entirely inert. So when Odysseus is standing there, being offered this cup of wine, he has already consumed the moly.
Yes.
He is a walking counterspell. He knows the drink is laced, but he also knows it cannot harm him.
Which turns this grand, intimidating gesture by Circe into basically an exercise in futility.
Right.
She is performing a magic trick for an audience who already knows how the illusion works.
I mean, according to the myth, she watches him drink the potion. Assuming she has won, she steps forward and strikes him with her wand.
Expecting him to drop to the floor and grow bristles like his crewmen.
But that is the exact moment the power dynamic violently shifts.
Right, because instead of transforming, Odysseus draws his sword and charges at her.
Threatening to take her head off.
Exactly.
And the supposedly invincible ruler of Aiaia completely folds. She drops to her knees, begs for her life, and under the threat of his blade, she is forced to reverse the magic.
Turning all 23 of the grunting swine back into seasoned Greek warriors.
So what does this all mean, like for how we interpret the canvas?
Well, when you analyze a painting with the full context of its ending, it fundamentally changes the emotional register of the image.
It injects the entire canvas with a massive dose of dramatic irony.
Precisely the point. I mean, at face value, to an uneducated observer, Circe is the apex predator.
Oh, absolutely.
She is seated, she is elevated, and she holds the instruments of destruction.
And the pig is her trophy. Undeniable proof of her absolute dominance.
Right, she looks utterly untouchable.
But the viewer who understands Homer's text and who understands the mechanics of the Molly and the hidden sword knows that her empire has already fallen.
Yes, her magic is void, her intricate plan is ruined.
The man standing just out of our view is fully immune and heavily armed.
Waterhouse delivers an absolute masterclass in capturing the agonizing concept of hubris here.
Why do you think he chose to paint the offer, though, rather than the retaliation?
What do you mean?
Well, he could have painted Odysseus lunging forward with the sword, grabbing her by the robes. That would be an incredibly dynamic, action-packed painting.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
It goes back to a concept championed by the philosopher Gotthold Ephraim Lessing regarding the fruitful moment in visual art.
The fruitful moment.
Right. If you paint the climax, the sword swinging, the physical struggle, you leave nothing to the imagination. The action is resolved.
Oh, I see.
But if you paint the moment of maximum potential energy, the second before the kinetic release, you force the viewer's mind to endlessly anticipate the violence.
So the psychological tension never resolves.
Exactly.
It is the difference between watching a bomb detonate and watching a timer tick down from 3 seconds to 2.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
The anticipation is infinitely more terrifying than the explosion. She is sitting on a throne of perceived power, completely unaware that the floor is about to drop out from under her.
Yes.
It's not a painting of a witch's victory. It's a painting of a predator unknowingly stepping into a snare.
And experiencing that suspended reality from Odysseus' perspective, courtesy of the mirror's geometry, makes the impending triumph feel so much more visceral.
Because we share his secret.
Right. We know the blade is waiting.
It's just wild to think that a 148-centimeter piece of fabric can hold all of those intersecting layers.
It really is.
I mean, it contains the ancient, sprawling psychological terror of Homer's epic. It showcases this hyper-detailed Pre-Raphaelite technique that makes the magic feel biologically real. It relies on a centuries-old optical trick with a convex mirror to physically trap the viewer in the scene.
And it serves as the crucial historical pivot that launched an artist into a lifetime of exploring the darkest corners of classical myth.
It really is a nexus point where history, optical physics, and artistic innovation all just collide.
It proves that a single glance, frozen in oil paint, can carry the weight of an entire epic poem.
Provided you know how to decode the mechanics operating beneath the surface, of course.
Of course.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over today.
Let's hear it.
Waterhouse's brilliant use of that circular mirror does more than just solve a composition problem for the painting. It forces us to confront how much of reality is actively hidden just outside our immediate field of vision.
That's a great point.
When you look at reflections, whether you are analyzing a masterpiece of 19th century art, dissecting a historical conflict, or simply navigating the power dynamics of your own daily life, how much of the truth is actually contained in the frame you are focused on?
Wow.
And how much is standing just out of sight, fully armed, immune to the illusion, and quietly waiting for the absolute right moment to strike? Something to keep in mind the next time someone smiles, steps forward, and offers you a beautiful, perfect cup of wine.